1 o'clock Eastern time. Let's begin. So thank you so much, first of all, for taking time out of your busy day to go over all this math stuff, kind of icky, scary stuff, huh? We are going to, let me just get these slides up. Not sure what you guys can see. Here we go. We're going to be revisiting, no doubt about it, quite a few areas that we have already discussed. And to that respect, we're going to be discussing actually some new things. So you guys are actually going to have the upper hand. But nonetheless, of course, I don't want to deliver anything, to anybody else's disadvantage. Anyhow, just in case either of you, because we have such a small group right now, but either of you, if you had experienced some troubles with the HR.com site earlier this morning and were thinking, oh my gosh, what's going on? Not to worry, it has since been resolved. So everything is okay, just in case you're wondering what's going on. Alrighty guys, let's talk about this math thing. So here's what I've got on our agenda today. We are going to, with new problems, so a whole new approach, we're going to revisit the 4/5 calculation. That takes us back to the very first time we pulled out a calculator, and we saw this at the beginning of Unit 2. Then we're going to move over to yield ratios, the ice cream cone. We saw that in Unit 2. And then everything else is going to be pretty new for you, because unfortunately we're not as deep into Unit 4 as I would like us to be. But again, you're just going to have the upper hand, and you'll have 2 exposures. Let me know, please, along the way what questions you have. Please let me know, what clarity be it that you need, whatever it is that you need. I want to make sure that you're getting everything. And, of course, that's why you're here today. So please do not hesitate to know that you are in good company. Okay, adverse impact. So we saw this definition before, but it's been some time. So let's just go through this again. When you have a selection rate for any race, sex, or ethnic group, and when that selection rate is less than 4/5 of the rate that belongs to a group with a higher rate, we actually may have evidence of adverse impact. Question for you. How do you feel hearing this and reading this again? Do you feel comfortable? Does it make sense? Do you feel dizzy? Are you lost? Because what you tell me is basically going to dictate what I do next. Okay, so we have one classmate saying you feel good. Okay, fantastic. Not to put pressure on our other classmate, but again, this is, if you will, the beauty and or disadvantage of this being a small group. So in answering this question, whether you feel good or not, in answering this question, that being the question I ask you, how do you feel? Let me put it a different way as well. By reading this definition and recalling, of course, what we already did before, can you extract the 3-step process to calculate alleged discrimination? Can you literally, if I were to give you screen control, would you be able to write out step 1, step 2, step 3? No pressure. Yes, no, maybe so. Okay, we're down to 1. Okay, we just lost one of our classmates, so can't quite tell who is here because you're coming up as a number, but looks like there's just 1. Nope, we got back our second person. Anyhow, okay, so not getting, I guess, a feel from the chat, but that's okay too. Okay, so basically it comes down to this. We're basically comparing the selection rates for no less than 2, quite possibly more than 2 groups. Be prepared, you might see that on a test. Such mathematical questions are actually becoming a little bit more, I would say, present in the PHR exam of all exams. Okay, it's not to say it won't be on any others, but this is what people are telling me. In any event, you're going to be faced with calculating rates for a number of different groups. Oh, hey, Jen. And so when you have, be it 2 groups, 3 groups, 4 groups, what have you, you need to calculate the selection rate for each of these groups so that ultimately you can determine which group has the highest rate and which group has the lowest rate. If there are multiple groups, any groups that's sandwiched in between those two extremes doesn't count. It's always relative to the question, but generally speaking, you could probably disregard it. And the issue here is, does the group with the lowest selection rate, is that rate less than 80% of, not compared to, but 80% of the group with the higher rate? So what I have explained before, and what I'm basically going to explain again, is best captured, I think, and I'm not a very good writer, but I try to articulate my plain Jane thoughts here in purple. So this is more so maybe just for your notes or for your reference, but I'd rather demonstrate this in the next question. So here we have a very straightforward, dare I even call it a simple question, and we're literally just going to work this out. So here we're being asked, being told, you have 64 males, start again. 64 males who took a test. Of those 64, 16 passed. You have 17 women who took a test, and of those 17, 3 passed. So those are just the facts. Okay, we have to have the facts so we can go and do our thing. We're being asked if the difference between these two groups and their respective selection rates is enough to signal adverse impact. So in order to answer that question, we need to calculate it. The first step is we need to calculate the rates or the selection rates for each group. And by doing this, in other words, we're going to figure out basically who's the highest and who's the lowest. So that's what step one is all about. Figure out your groups. So we're just going to take literally the males, and we're going to calculate their pass rate. 16 males passed of, so I'm going to divide. Let me actually get my cute little division symbol. Sorry, I'm not very good with like the shortcuts. Did that work? No, of course it didn't work. Hold on. But basically, we're going to divide 16 into the total number that tested. There we go. Yay, it worked. I'll make this pretty in a second. So that's 64 who tested. So that being said, what is the pass rate? Just the pass rate. While I pretty this up and I get everything looking nice and aesthetic. Can you guys, in the meantime, calculate what is the pass rate? 16 out of a possible 64 people passed. What do you get? Perfect. Okay, let me know if I'm going too fast. Let me know if you get a different number. We have another couple people who joined us, so that's good. 16 divided by 64 literally is 0.25. Now we want a rate. We want a percentage. So to get that, multiply by 100, and basically, yes, 25% of the males who took the test passed. We don't know if this is the highest rated group or the lowest rated group, because it's always relative to the next group. So let's do the same thing for the ladies. We had 3 who passed by a total of 17 who tested. And what is the pass rate? Now for this group. What is the pass rate of the females? And you can round for the sake of simplicity. Fabulous. So it comes out to, you're right, 0.176. So multiplying by 100, just rounding, we get 18%. Perfect. Anybody get a different number? Anybody have any questions? You guys let me know. I can always back up. Perfect. Okay, good. Sorry, if I don't check in with you, I guess maybe, I'm scared that I might be doing wrong by you because you obviously came to, I guess, get the reassurance of what you know, so I want to make sure you're good. So what this tells us is clearly who our group is with the higher pass rate and who the group is with the lower pass rate. After step number 1, all we're really going to do is take a look at the group with the higher pass rate. What did I do here? I really just wanted to highlight it. Anyhow, so it is that group. Why can't I highlight it? It's that group that really is going to proceed to the next stage, because this is the group, and I'm going to bold them, that we're really going to shave off 20% from. So this now takes us to step 2. Again, I'm going to clean this up, and no, I've got a nice clean slide deck for you. In fact, I can add it to the chat at the end of this session. So step number 2 basically is to apply the 4/5 rule, which in other words means we're going to shave off 20%. Now, in all fairness, it's been some time since we did this, and you might forget what I meant by shave off when I first, mentioned this. So let me know if you need a friendly reminder. But because, in other words, we're really only holding the employer accountable for 4/5 of the group with the highest rate, then the balance is 1/5. 4/5 is 80%. Therefore, the balance is 20%. So it doesn't matter how you want to approach this. And we did the example in our lesson when we did this live per unit too, of like going shopping. And imagine whatever you're buying is 20% off and you're only out of pocket 80% of the suggested retail price. It is the same approach. Because here the EEOC is saying, okay, employer who subjected these men and these women to this test, things happen. And for whatever uncontrollable, unbeknownst to me reasons, like every other good plan, we're going to allow a 20% contingency. After that 20%, we are holding you accountable. So it's almost like, like a grace period or a grace amount. It's their safety net, if you will. So we're only taking in the group with the highest rate. Those are the males. The males came in at 25%. So you take 25, we can drop the percentage sign. And we want to know what 4/5 of in math language, I learned the hard way, is actually to multiply. Let me start this again. 4/5, actually, let's start that differently. 4/5 of the group with the highest rate. The group with the highest rate were the males. They had 25%. So I don't know about you, but every once in a while I get a little bit of a flashback from the past, and I have to remember bed math. Do you remember that from grade school? Brackets, we don't have any. Exponents, we don't have any. Division, we have. Multiplication, we have. Addition, we don't have. Subtraction, we don't have. So what we're going to do here, let me just clean this up a little bit. We're going to do the division first. 4/5. 4 divided by 5. That is 0.8. So really, we're going to multiply 0.8 times 25. And that's also y. But what do you get? 0.8 times 25, because we just want to know what is 80% of 25. Perfect. It's like saying you're going to go buy something for $25. It's on sale for 20% off. You're paying 80% of 25. Amazing. So it's 20%. So now, and this is really the hardest part, now we say, okay, this is the benchmark. This is the number that really you want to beat. 20%. Anything less than 20% is not okay. And so let's actually see this come to fruition. That's step number 3. We're going to compare, or in other words, we're going to verse, if you will, the minority group against the majority group. So when I say minority versus majority, I'm also saying the group with the lesser rate versus, actually, excuse me, we're not comparing it to the majority group. We're comparing it to our calculated adverse impact rate, which in this case is 20%. So We're going to bring the ladies back in, the women. They had a pass rate of 18%. And remember, the definition said, a selection rate for any race, in this case sex, or ethnic group. And when that rate is less than 80% of the rate for the group with the highest rate, well, the group with the highest rate were the men. 80% of the men's rate of 25 is 20%. We may have evidence of adverse impact because the women's pass rate came in at less than 20%, where 20% is now the new threshold that we already established. We then say, yes, there is evidence of adverse impact. Basically, go and do your investigation. How do you feel? How does this sound? What are your questions? Where perhaps, if any, do you need me to revisit? You're good? Okay, amazing. I don't mean to be annoying, and I never want to put anybody under the spotlight. I just want to make sure everybody's okay. So I have one classmate saying, thumbs up. What about the remaining 3 of you? Are you guys feeling good? Any questions? You want me to back up at all? Okay, amazing. Okay, perfect. So then, with that being said, just friendly reminder, if I may, what you do not do, just in case, in the motions of the test, and you get overwhelmed, you're probably going to have a lot of more moving parts, okay? What you do not do, first of all, do not bypass these 3 steps. But you do not take the group with the lesser rate, and you do not divide it into the group with the higher rates. You do not do that. Big no-no. Because it's all in the definition. The definition does not say if the group with the lesser rate is less than 80% of the group with the higher rate. You do not divide one into the other, because that will be like, wow, this is so easy. Life isn't that easy. It's these 3 steps. Okay, super. So again, I've got a nice clean slide deck for you, not to worry. And if time allows and I don't forget, I will be sure to share that with you. But in the meantime, take your screenshots or take your notes. No doubt you probably already have. This is the quickest I've ever done this slide. Wow, kudos to you guys. Let me give a message out to the people who may be listening to this by means of the recording later. If you have any questions, let me know. Okay, so let's continue. We talk about yield ratios. Again, let me just pick your brains because you basically are going to tell me what I need to do next. When we talked about yield ratios and we're trying to understand how many people are we putting through our recruiting filter, and we did the example as well of kind of asking ourselves, anytime I make a decision, how do I start with many options and basically, what's the word, filter, vet, that's the word I'm looking for, vet those decisions through my filter. So now that you kind of get that blast from the past and that refresher, how do you feel about yield ratios? Knowing we are going to go into an example, but on the surface anyhow, are you thinking, yeah, I never really got this? Or are you thinking, no, I'm good. I'm here for kind of like high-level review. So you tell me how you feel. Because again, that's going to tell me what I'm doing next. Okay, fair enough. Okay? Okay, so it looks like we have a little bit of, if I'm reading the messages that came in correctly, a lot of mixed feelings. Perfect. Okay. When we studied, and when you may be tested, and I have seen this as well on a PHR, because these are more like day-to-day things that we do, but when we studied yield ratios, we studied it in Unit 2, where in Unit 2, we were talking about recruiting and selecting. So basically, yield ratios is a way for us to measure and analyze the analytics, the numbers, every step of the way during a company's recruitment and selection process. And you want to understand basically where you start relative to where you end. You start with A, that could be step A, you go all the way, and there's so many steps in between. and you ultimately get to Z or Z. Sorry, I always forget. How do you pronounce it? How do I pronounce it? Anyhow, but the question is, what's happening, of course, in between. Where really you could start with cajillions of people, and as you make your way to the finish line, you're having fewer people. Think of it, for example, the last time you made a decision. Let's say, for example, you were deciding where to go for dinner. And maybe when you said to your friends or your family, hey, who's up for dinner tonight? Everyone was like, yeah, I'm on board. And when you put your heads together, maybe you came up with, let's say, 6 possible restaurants. As long as one of them would be Olive Garden, I'm good. But let's say you came up with 6 possible restaurants. This is the biggest number in the scenario. And whatever you guys did to narrow down that number, be it couldn't get a reservation, be it wasn't close by and traffic is busy, be it you had a coupon here, there, or the next place, maybe ultimately you and your friends or family decided on just 2. Well, you're not going to go to 2 restaurants in one night, I'm assuming, and ultimately decided on 1. So here you started with many options, and you basically tapered it down, tapered it down, tapered it down, to ultimately you had your 1 option. And that's what you went forward with. Now, next time you go out for dinner, depending, of course, who maybe you're asking, you may actually only have 4 options on the table. And then you guys select 2 from which you're ultimately going to decide, and again, you choose your 1. That's okay. The numbers, these actual real kinds of numbers, are always going to change. But what yield ratios do is they tell us the ratio of what is the likeliness of where I start relative to where I end. And that's the value of yield ratios. Because what this will do is tell you, next time you say to, let's say, your friends, hey guys, where do you want to go to eat? Rather than getting frustrated with, oh my God, we put out like 10 options, I'm dizzy, you at least know, okay, this is what our process looks like. So you know to already engage for impact kind of thing. I'm also going to show you a trick, which I've summarized here in purple, when we do the scenario on the next slide. So let's do this. Okay. I want you to close your eyes and daydream with me, okay? I'm going to read you a situation, but I really want you to feel this. Imagine you are an HR recruiter. For some of you, that may actually be your reality. Be that as it may. As an HR recruiter, your task at hand is to fill a vacant position of a marketing position. Let's call it a marketing assistant. You go to a recruitment fair or trade show. Point is, you're in this huge auditorium, you're working the table, you're representing the brand. You're shaking hands with 100 potential candidates, and you have a little pre-screen kind of conversation. You encourage all 100 of those candidates to please go online to the company's website, complete an application, and to attach and submit a resume. Not everybody does, per your suggestion. In fact, only 20 people take your advice and do just that. And then you screen those 20 candidates. You determine that half of those 20 candidates can actually proceed to an interview. After the interview, yada, 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 in the words of George Costanza, more and more stages in the recruitment process proceed. Ultimately, you extend a conditional offer of employment to 2 candidates, pending a criminal background check. From that, 1 candidate satisfies and becomes your new incumbent. This is basically the story. We want to calculate the yield ratios for each stage and overall. What you do not have here, and that's just for the purposes of this exercise, is a question. In your real exam, you will have a question. And what you do, of course, is always relative to the question. The question might ask you, what is your yield ratio of conditional candidates to interviews? It might ask you, what is your yield ratio of conditional offers to resumes submitted? It's always relative to what the question is. And then that tells you what to do with the information that you're being shared with. But let's now actually go and tackle this scenario. Okay, so here what I've done is I've just basically drawn a smaller version, or not drawn, sorry, forgive me, my email distracted me. See, there I am again, can't do two things at one time. All I've done is basically condense the problem to allow us ample drawing space. So forgive me guys, I'm gonna draw freehand. I'm not good at this, but I'll try to be as clean and organized as I can be, while at the same token, I'm also going to eliminate information from the scenario. I am a big fan, I'm sure I've told you guys this a cajillion times before, I'm a big fan of mind mapping. You are going to be equipped in your exam with a writing platform or drawing tools of some sort, paper and pencil, wipe away board, what have you. And the goal here is to really just mind map, organize your thoughts so this way you can answer the question as best as you can without kind of just trying to like eyeball things, especially if it's, you know, math related or anything, frankly, that requires just a little bit more like thinking out loud. So we're going to put this through our funnel because that's what this is all about. So I'm going to draw the funnel here. When I have been in the exam, and if I were in your shoes and I were to be in an exam, I would do just that. I'm going to go through the scenario again. I read it, I cried, I'm ready to tackle it. Here I am, I'm a recruiter, I'm working the table, I meet 100 candidates who basically I pre-screen. So I'm going to identify that as my stage. I'll put here pre-S for pre-screen. Again, that was 100 people. We shook hands, I gave them a whole whopping 38 seconds of my life to learn a little bit about them. I'm done with that piece of information, I don't want to see it again. I've captured it. I suggest that please go online and submit an application. Only 20 people did so. So I'm going to put 20, and that being that a resume was submitted for me to review. Perfect. Going to get rid of that as well. I don't need to see it again. Yada, yada, yada. Only half of them being 20, will go to the interview. So half of 20 is 10, and that's where a question may trick you because now we don't have a number. So you might be thinking, thanks for having to walk me through that, but I more so just want to point out to you that there's no number here. And you'd be surprised how many times people will be like, something's missing. So we'll get rid of that. So 10 people, in other words, went to an interview. Yada, 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 I read, stages, stages, stages. 2 candidates got conditional offers. 2, and I'll put here CO for conditional offer. Get rid of that, I don't want to see it. Criminal background check, this, that, or the other. 1 successfully satisfied. So 1 is my NH, my new hire. That's this particular scenario's story. Next time I read a scenario, the story may have different numbers, but it's not actually about the numbers. It's about the ratio. So let's actually start to dissect the ratio. It's basically just fractions. So basically, let's just take a look at the first 2 stages in this particular story. We pre-screened 100 candidates. And then from that, 20 of them materialized actually into a resume that we could review. So basically, this tells us for every 100 candidates we pre-screen, 20 will turn into a resume. Now, good form in yield ratios is always you want to be something to 1. So something we'll leave as an unknown X. So the left column, in other words, is always going to be kind of like something. But what we know is we always want to bring it to be 1. So right now, as you see, I have here in my first comparison of the two stages, for every 100 candidates I pre-screen, 20 of them will be a resume. I need to break this down to be something to one. In order to get it to be something to one, I know how to get 20 down to 1. I divide it by itself. 20 divided by 20 is 1. Yay! I've won half the battle. What you do to the right, you do to the left. So as well, divide 100 by 20. So in other words, you're dividing both left and right of the semicolon by the number on the right. That's it. 100 divided by 20 is 5. So next time, I might only shake hands with 75 people. Maybe it will be with 500 people. But what I know as just a metric, for every 5 people I pre-screen, I will get 1 resume. How do you guys feel? Especially for anybody who is thinking, it's like a teeter-totter here for me. Okay, fantastic. Okay, so if you feel good about that and like the approach or, the thought process behind it, the rest is smooth sailing. So not only a little bit, of like some tricks to remember about math, but hopefully a little bit of like, logic there too. And this is how I've had to kind of also walk myself through this. So that's just between the first 2 steps. Let's continue. The next 2 steps. For every 20 resumes I review, I'm only inviting 10 of those people to an interview. I can't invite every resume. I only have 1 position. The name of the game is filter, filter, filter to basically the winner. So in any event, some of you might be eyeballing 10 is just half of 2. Perfect. But let's do the long route. Divide both sides by the number on the right. That's 10. And so now your ratio is 2 to 1, which again makes sense because 10 is half of 20. So this is saying for every 2 resumes that you review, half as many, i.e. 1, will actually become an interview. Okay, let's continue. Well, for every, let's take a look here, 10 interviews that we hold, we're only going to extend 2 conditional offers. Again, for the sake of simplicity, if you don't mind, I'll divide both 10 and 2 by 2, number on the right, and that brings me, by coincidence again, to 5 to 1. And then last but not least, for every 2 conditional offers I extend, 1 person will become my new hire. And we don't need to break this down anymore because we can't. So let me just highlight our ratios. And again, this is just going to help us understand the next time we're recruiting a similar like position. I've got 5 to 1. I've got 2 to 1. This is a coincidence. I've got 5 to 1. And again, 2 to 1. Now that's just between each step. And these numbers may vary depending on what steps I'm comparing. But I'm going to make a bold statement here. And I am going to say, overall, from beginning to end, my yield ratio is where I started relative to where I ended. So I'm going to draw just at the top of my funnel. For every 100 candidates I meet, greet, and pre-screen at these recruiting fairs that I put through the motions, 1 of them will become my new hire. So if I'm looking for 2 people, I'm aiming to meet and greet 200 people. If I meted and greeted, is that a word, in or around 100, probably tells me I'm in good shape. If I only meet and greet 20, I'm probably not going to find my new hire. That's what this ratio tells me. Basically, it gives us direction for success. Now, you may be thinking, and I don't blame you, that, yeah, that's pretty self-explanatory why it's 100 to 1. It's relative to where you started and to where you ended. It's right there in front of us. But I do want to show you a trick. I would say 8 out of 10 times I think that this is going to work. So here's your little mathematical shortcut. Just to verify your calculation of the overall yield ratio, this is what you want to do. You want to take the denominator, so the number to the left, I always have to remind myself, which one is the denominator? The denominator, the number to the left of the semicolon in each of your calculated yield ratios. And then you're going to multiply them by one another. So I'm just going to circle. We're going to take the 5, the 2, the 5, and the 2. Take a look what I'm going to do over on the right margin. I take the 5 from our very first 5-to-1 ratio that we calculated. I'm going to multiply it by the 2, which is from the 2-to-1, the second ratio that we calculated. We get 10. Then I'm going to take the next 5 from the third ratio we calculated, multiply that by 10, so we get 50. Then the last ratio, I'll take the 2 again, and then we get our 100. And that's what matches up in this case of my claim of 100 to 1. And that's so you can double check your math. You guys good? Sorry, did I go too fast, or does that sit well with you? And this is a good opportunity as well. Take your screenshots, make your notes. Please, again, ask me your questions. If you want me to back up, if you need me to kind of revisit something, let me know. How are you guys feeling? Oh, super. Okay. Anybody else want to, no pressure. Again, I don't want to, make anybody feel uncomfortable, but I don't want to move on and you be like, no, wait, hold on. Okay. Everybody seems to be okay. So I'm going to erase this and we're going to move on to some brand new stuff. Going once, going twice, 3 times, erasing. Okay. So friendly reminder, yield ratios, that was fun. Compare ratios, this is something new. And we are actually not very far away from talking about this, but compare ratios is basically coming from a place where you want to calculate a ratio of comparative pay, particularly in job bands or in pay grades, better yet. So some of you already may be familiar. This may be new to others. Don't worry about this. We're going to take a look at this, be it later this week or on the weekend, depending which group you're coming from. But when we talk about compare ratios, first of all, we're really going to take a look at the wage curve. So the wage curve, I'm just going to draw at the bottom. It's basically when you have, for example, money on the y-axis. So basically that's your compensation, so how much money are you earning? And of course, we're going to basically find the coordinates with the number of points that are accumulated to the worth or the value of a job. Okay, I'm not going to discuss the point calculation because that's what we're going to take a look at. It's like on page 26, so we're going to get there this week. In any event, it helps us really be able to plug away, as an organization, our job bands, yada, yada, yada. Well, throughout each of these job bands, of course, which are more equally to scale, there is going to be the midpoint, or the wage curve. And this is running smack through the middle. So it is literally the halfway point of a pay grade. It's 50% of the lowest pay, and it's 50% on its way to the highest pay in that given job band. So if you're in a job band, $50,000 to $100,000, then the midpoint is 75. Compare ratios want to understand where people are paid relative to the wage curve. This is all part of job evaluation. This is especially important should there be a claim of discrimination. So if somebody says, whoa, I'm being crazy underpaid, and it's because I am, and fill in the blank, that is an allegation that warrants being investigated. So compare ratios are going to be calculated. To calculate a compare ratio, I have to erase, sorry guys, at the bottom, but to calculate a compare ratio, the calculation, the math, is pretty straightforward, and it looks exactly like this. You take the wage rate of the person, so this is information that has to be given to you. You take the wage curve midpoint, so this is a mid-range point, like that 75,000. Again, somehow, some way, this has to be given to you. So either it's in an illustration and you read it, such as what I just showed you, like the bar graph, or it's literally just given to you. and then you multiply it by 100. Now, what we're not reading here is people are not always going to be at the midpoint, nor should they. There's a variety of different reasons. Aside from those, what is a healthy variance below or above the midpoint? So you might be thinking, yeah, I'm not at the midpoint for my job band, maybe because you just recently were promoted and you bump to the next job band, but you're still kind of like at the lower end of that job band. Hey, listen, we all start somewhere. Some people may be topping up. They could be at the very, 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 very top of it. Again, I'm sure it's justifiable, but there is a healthy variance. That variance is plus or minus 20% of the mid-range point. You can be 20% below, you can be 20% above, and it's not too terribly alarming. Let's take a look on the next slide. So here we have a scenario. We have a full-time employee who is earning $47,000 a year. Great. The salary midpoint, or mid-range point, better yet, that's MRP, mid-range point, is $54,900. Okay, so clearly this person is making less than the mid-range point. They're probably not thrilled, but they may or may not have a claim. What is the compa ratio, and is it acceptable? So let's do this. What we're going to do, first and foremost, is we're going to take the annual salary, and we are going to divide it by the mid-range point. So let's get a comma in there, and then we'll multiply it by 100. Sorry, I think you can see where I'm going with this. So in lieu of my typing, or my typing error, what do you guys calculate? Just make this nice and aesthetic. 47,000 divided by 54,900, and then multiplied by 100 so we can get more of a rate. What do you get? Actual divided by the mid-range, and then multiplied by 100. Perfect. Parfait. So yeah, it's 85.6. It can be 86. You can round it, no problem. So either or is fine. So 85.6 or 86%. What this is telling us is this employee is making 86% of the mid-range point. So this person is 14% below the mid-range point. So you satisfied the first part of the question, which is amazing. We calculated it. We were told, compute. Perfect. Now the second question is 86% of the mid-range point, is it acceptable? So what do you guys think? Is this acceptable? Yes, no, or I don't know? Okay, so we have one person saying yes. Anybody else want to weigh in? Yes, no, or I don't know? Again, this is new content. Another I think so, and a yes. Absolutely. It is acceptable, and you guys are all 100% right. The reason why this is acceptable, again, because you can be plus or minus 20% of the mid-range point, which in this case is 54.9. So in other words, put even better, if ever, you're faced to calculate a compa ratio, and by the way, I saw this on the SHRM CP in my exam, so very plausible, I guess, to my experience. If you fall, or the computation is anywhere from 80 to 120%, you're in the safe zone. Because again, you're never going to be right on the money. If that's the case, then what's the point of having a range? So 80 to 120%, you are safe. If we're less than 80, yeah, you know what? I don't know. That might open up a can of worms. How do you guys feel? Questions, thoughts, comments? I know you're going to get this another time. Again, just as standard repertoire in the lesson, but you're okay? Okay? I'm being asked, so why is it 80 to 120%? Fair question. Because there needs to be a little bit of give. So imagine this, okay? Let me try to make it about you. Let's say, I have to think of something. Hold on. Hold on. Let me just quickly do a calculation because I'm not that bright. So, okay. Let's say you are working in a job band where the job band ranges anywhere from $47,000 to $62,800. Okay, people in this job band are going to be paid anywhere in between that. Now, there's a lot of reasons why people will be paid what they're paid. Seniority, longevity, amazing negotiation skills when they came on board, merit increases, and so forth. Everybody wants to be at the top of the job band because who doesn't want to get more money? The people who are at the bottom, they may not love this so much. They can see the strides that they need to go. Now, smack in the middle is the mid-range point. There are always going to be people below. There's always going to be people above. There might also be a handful of people at that mid-range point. Now, I don't know about you, but if I were in the lower end and you were my clone, let's say, you and I did the same thing, we had the same experience, the same knowledge, we scaled the same thing in terms of our performance appraisals, but you were at the higher end, I'd probably say, shut the front door. Like, what is going on? Why am I down here and my equal is up here? For a variety of reasons, there may be that difference. So, like any other good plan, kind of like what we just talked about when we did adverse impact, you want to allow a safety zone for variances. You want to allow contingency. So best practice, not to mention, EEOC is going to say, listen, you're not always going to be at the midpoint, and you're not always going to be in the top of the range. So we say that 20% above or below the midpoint is actually a safe zone. It is a fair, safe gray area. But let's say I were to come in and say, you know what, I'm only being paid $47,000 or maybe even less because I'm female. It's a very serious accusation. And so maybe the EEOC, together with the employer, they're going to research, whoa, maybe it's not ridiculous. That's a huge accusation to say I'm being discriminated against based on gender. And pay equality is all the rage right now. They're going to calculate this relative to the mid-range point. And if it is below 80%, so less than 20% of the mid-range point, then yeah, they might be like, okay, it may or may not be your gender, which is why you're being paid less than, but I see that you're only being paid, let's say, 75% of the mid-range point. Kind of breaks all the best practice rules. And so, yeah, let's investigate this. So 80 to 120, because it's plus or minus 20%. And again, 20% is just a good number for a contingency. It's EEOC's threshold, and generally speaking, industry best practice. Does that sit well with you, the way that I explained it? Does that make sense? Oh, perfect. Okay. You got it. My pleasure. Makes everybody probably think, hold on, how much am I being paid? So this applies, yeah, definitely when there's job bands. Definitely helpful. Okay, fantastic. So that's compa ratios. And again, we're going to see this again. So know that you'll get that friendly reminder. Your first exposure, which too, you're going to get another exposure to, is the standard hour plan. So I want you to think now about the way in which people are paid. If you have ever worked or you know of anybody, or maybe you can just kind of visualize and daydream what this may look like, anybody who works, for example, piece rate, they're going to be paid not necessarily per piece, I mean maybe, but they also might be paid against a standard. a standard output, a standard performance. And that's what this is. So in the standard hour plan, as an individual incentive, as opposed to company incentive or group incentive, as an individual incentive, the company sets a standard, whatever it is, 100 units an hour, 5,000 cars to be sold in a month. They set the standard. And they say, when you achieve the standard, you will also achieve a certain amount of money. Payout is standardized per output standardization. So one earning these monies is based on their ability to achieve the standard. Now, when you make more than the standard, you will get relatively paid more. And that's the incentive. So let's take a look at this mathematically on the next slide. Let me just erase this. Mosey on. Okay. So imagine this. Here we have a sewing operator. The standard production for the sewing operator at a company called You Sew It is 50 units per hour. Now, if I were you, and when I have been in your shoes, I've always tended to capture, like I said, all this information in my own notes just to kind of mind map it. So 50 units per hour. Okay, that's just a fact. Helps you from having to, I guess, get your eyes overwhelmed by all this information by revisiting it. When 50 units per hour is produced, the employee earns $10 an hour. So basically 50 units an hour equals $10 an hour. Now remember, the principles of the standard hour plan is you meet the standard, we'll pay you. You don't meet the standard, you don't get that money. You'll get less than, but everything is relative. So in this case, you'll see in the last sentence, if the sewing operator is producing 75 units per hour, then what is the standard hourly earnings? So the question is, how much more did the sewing operator produce? Now, it's always relative. It's not per piece. It's more proportional. So this person actually produced 75 units. So in order to understand how much more proportionally was produced, you take your actual and divide it by, if you will, your desirable or your projected. So 75 divided by 50. Not per unit, but proportionally. How much more is that? So what do you guys get? 75 divided by 50. What do you get in your calculators? Perfect. So the sewing operator produced another half. So this sewing operator produced one and a half times the standard. So they're going to be paid 1.5 times. So we'll multiply 1.5 times by their standard hourly rate. You make more, you get more. You make less, you get less. That's the incentive. So this person is going to be paid $15 an hour for those hours that they are pumping out 1.5 times the standard. Does that sit well with you guys? Any thoughts, questions? Yep. Yeah, easy breezy lemon squeezy, right? Okay, but one thing, and this is what I've had classmates in the past say, whoa, I'm confused. It's not piece rate. If that were the case, we'd have to break down what are you being paid per piece. You made an extra 25 pieces, and again, it's just straightforward. X per piece, it equals pay. This is a standard. Okay, super. Let's take a look at overtime. No doubt you guys know this. Overtime is being paid 1.5 times the regular rate of pay when you work more than 40 hours in a week. Awesome. That's the individual incentive. That's probably got to be the only reason why people work overtime, right? Because we're exhausted. The key here is, and this I predict you will see in an exam question, as I have seen and many other people as well have told me they have seen. it's all about defining what does regular rate of pay really mean. Regular rate of pay is defined as your basic, oops, sorry, let me get my animation coming out. Hold on. Your basic hourly rate, $10 an hour, for example, plus, that's the key here, plus non-discretionary bonuses, shift differentials, big one, production bonuses, or commissions earned. These are the rules of FLSA. So FLSA says, and this is what we always see in tests, if the incentive for you to have greater output is based on a production bonus, not a quarterly bonus, not an annual bonus, we're talking about production that's really going to put a fire under your rear, then that has to be part of your regular rate of pay. And therefore, it becomes susceptible to overtime. Most people will just lump sum add that bonus. FLSA says it's wrong. So for the purposes, especially, of course, for the exam, let's take a look at a scenario. The standard hourly rate for a sewing operator, different sewing operator, same kind of context though, is $15 per hour. The sewing operator works on a job for 12 hours a day, 4 days, and produces 3,600 pieces. Let me actually, sorry, forgive me, I'm just going to highlight some of this information differently. Here's what we care about. $15 an hour, 12 hours a day, 4 days, 3,600 pieces. Now, in this time, the sewing operator is awarded a $75 production bonus. Let's calculate what this person is going to earn. So, what you want to do, let me just change the color of my font, forgive me. What you want to do is, first of all, let's start with the information that we know is impacting us. I'm going to start with the total hours. We know we've got 12 hours a day, 4 days, so that's 48 hours. Okay, so basically, that's going to alert us, we're talking about 8 hours of overtime. In a stressful situation, or perhaps not having the knowledge or experience, you might just think, okay, 48 hours. We're alerted to 8 hours overtime. Okay. The second piece of information, so basically you've dealt with that information. The next thing that is really, really key is to take into account the production bonus, because that production bonus is going to change the hourly pay. Because remember, FLSA said your regular rate of pay will include as well a production bonus. So here we think this person is making $15 an hour. They're not. We have to consider the bonus. So this sewing operator has been awarded a $75 bonus. But kind of like calculating, how much is your total pay if you are, let's say, serving tables? You're getting paid hourly, but then you also want to calculate, my commissions. What is really your hourly worth? So we need to break down the bonus by the total number of hours invested to earn this bonus. Had the sewing operator worked more hours, maybe would have been able to make a bigger bonus. If the sewing operator did the opposite and worked less hours, may not have made such a generous bonus. So on an hourly basis, what is the bonus worth? So $75 bonus divided by the 48 hours it took to earn the bonus. Tell me if you got a different number. $1.56. I think you guys are probably rounding, right? I got 1.5625. Yeah? Okay. Okay. $1.56. So we're going to add this to the $15 that we know that this sewing operator is already making. So this person, bonus in, is on an hourly basis worth $16.56. Okay, so we dealt with the $15 an hour, let's get rid of it. We dealt with the bonus, let's get rid of it. There's only one other piece of information that I highlighted. 3,600 pieces. This person is not being paid on piece rate. I don't know that there's any type of standard to know if $3,600 or 3,600 pieces, is good or bad. This is a trick. This is irrelevant information. This person is based straight on hourly wage, regardless of performance and output. That was a trick. The reason why I know is because nowhere in the question or statement does it say what the standard is. So I have nothing to compare 3,600 pieces to, nor does it tell me what the piece value is to multiply it by the 3,600 pieces. Trick. So now we have all the information that we need. And really that information is how much does this person make, bonus in, and how many hours did this person work? So, and I'm going to do this in a little bit more of a clean way, so I'm sorry I didn't do this before, especially as we're pushing the hour. Let's do this nice and clean. Sorry, where's my text box? Now we can take the $16.56 that this person is earning per hour and multiply it by the 40 straight hours. Okay, and please do it along with me. Let's silence my phone. Do it along with me. What do you get? $16.56 is the value of the hour times 40 straight hours. Let me know if you get a different number than what I got. Perfect. And now we'll calculate the overtime. $16.56 times 1.5 times its value. Again, that's the incentive. Times the 8 overtime hours. A little bit of a longer calculation. What do you get? We might be off a penny here or there because these are kind of icky numbers. I got 198.72. Did anybody get differently? No, you're okay. You guys let me know if you come up with a different number. And then you're going to add your straight time plus your overtime. And you will get 861.12. So you guys let me know if you got something different. You guys let me know if you want me to back up. You guys let me know how you're feeling. Super. Okay, I'm being asked, so why did I do the 1656 times 1.5? So anytime somebody works in excess of 40 hours in a week, those hours are subject to being paid another half. So that's the incentive of working overtime. Otherwise, people are going to say, I put in 40 hours, I'm done, find yourself somebody else. Some people want to cash in, but this is the incentive. Yeah. Perfect. Okay, so I know that I've kept you over, but I don't want to, I guess, rob you from maybe another opportunity to practice the knowledge. If you can, and if you want to, stick. I've got one problem that normally what I do is I present it, I go silent, you calculate it, and then we compare answers. So I'm going to erase this, going once, going twice, 3 times. I'm going to share with you my next slide. And like I said, if you can and if you want to, stick with me. You do this problem. I will load up this nice clean slide deck for you in the interim, and then we'll compare and contrast. Restaurant chefs have had a long night preparing for their annual holiday feast for the community. They each worked a 10-hour day, which brought the total weekly hours to 43. Now, lucky for them, a $10 incentive was awarded as a production bonus for each turkey cooked. Each chef cooked 8 turkeys. If each chef earns $12 an hour, what is the total pay for the week per chef? Go. Whenever you feel ready, please feel welcome to either send me the answer in the chat, privately or publicly, or just tell me ready, and then I will reveal the answer. That's the beauty, I guess, of there just being a handful of you. I can really accommodate each of you. Let me know how you guys are doing. Okay. Okay. Is it okay if I reveal? I'm just trying to be mindful of the time. Okay, here we go. Sorry, I hope I'm not cutting anybody off. I'm so sorry. Here we go. Okay. Now remember, it all starts with how much is somebody making per hour. What's going to change the hourly pay is always going to be any type of, be it non-discretionary bonus or production bonus. Remember the definition of what is considered part of regular rate of pay. More often than not, in fact, I've never heard of anything other, is you're going to have a production bonus. So that is what is going to make or break, again, the hourly rate. A lot of people will go based on $12 an hour and then just throw in the lump sum incentive. The exam is expecting you to do that, so don't do that. Start with the production bonus. The production bonus was $10 per turkey. There were 8 turkeys, so your production bonus is $80. But the question is, if you're going to break down the production bonus to an hourly rate, what would it be? If you made $80 as a production bonus, take into account how many hours you invested to have that kind of production. So you want to divide it by the 43 hours worked. So your production bonus hourly value is $1.86. You can add that $1.86 to the $12 an hour pay that was already established. Now the chef's hourly earnings is $13.86. That's going to make you or break you. With that $13.86, now you can go ahead and calculate the pay, both straight and overtime. $13.86 times 40 straight hours is $554.40. $13.86 times 1.5, because that's the incentive of working over 40 hours, and multiplied by the 3 overtime hours. The overtime value is $62.37. You add the 2 together, and you arrive at $616.77. For anybody who got it, didn't get it, maybe wasn't quite finished calculating, how does that sound? Okay, I'm being asked, why do you do 10 turkeys, 10, I guess, turkeys times 8? Because in the question, let me just pull up my highlighter, it's saying there's a $10 incentive for each turkey cooked. The chef cooked 8 turkeys. It says if you're right. Lucky for them, a $10 incentive is awarded production bonus for each turkey cooked. Yeah, each chef cooked 8 turkeys. It's a little bit of a trick because we don't have the number 8. So $10 a turkey, 8 turkeys, there's your $80. Yeah, that's pretty common. I know, I always mess that up too, that I don't do the production bonus in the overtime hours. Just remember, that's the first thing. They're not really making $12 an hour. What really, so think of it like this, okay? Maybe you have the upper hand because if you've ever been tipped. So I remember, for example, one time, a long time ago, I was 16, so it was like in the 1800s, but one time I was babysitting. And I think back then I was making like a whole whopping $5 an hour. I had babysat for, I think it was something like 4 hours or something. I have to try to think of the math. So let's say it was 4 hours. So I made $20. Well, I got tipped, I think like another $4. Let me just try to think about how the math will work out for me. So I got tipped another $4. And I remember my dad, when I came home, he asked me, so how much did you make? And I said, I got $24. That's how much I had in my pocket. And he's like, how much do you get paid an hour? And I said, 5. And he said, no, you didn't. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yes, I did. He said, no, you didn't. I'm like, what? He said, you got paid $6 an hour. It's total net. So think of it like that. If you've ever worked in a capacity such that you earned any type of tip or anything like that, it's net. Hope that helps. Again, though, don't worry. We are going to go over this again when we do talk about FLSA. So you guys are at the advantage that you already got a sneak peek, but we will sort through this again. That being said, that's all she wrote. Now, for reasons actually I don't know, I can't attach a file to the chat box. Normally I always can, so this is kind of weird. I don't have that option on my end. So I will load up the nice clean slide deck along with the recording and start syncing the recording like ASAP. If you guys feel good or just the right dosage of good and you have to go, I totally understand, so you're welcome to sign out. If you have any questions for me, I am going to remain online for a couple of minutes. My next meeting doesn't start for 7 minutes. So I am all ears if there's anything that you need. But otherwise, thanks for joining me. Thanks for letting me chew off your ears and have yourselves a great day. And funnily enough, the Coach's Corner session tonight is on FLSA. FLSA or FMLA? Something with an F. I forget. I think it's FLSA, I'm pretty sure. My pleasure. You too. Thank you. Alrighty. Okay. Well, Jen, I think I'm going to cut you off. It looks like it's just you and I, but I don't see any questions coming in. So unless there's anything you need, I guess I will sign out. Okay. Bye.